Hello and welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today I'm going to be working on my boxwood. If you remember it, it's the tree on a hilltop looking down the narrow side of an oval pot. I'll show it to you now. Alright, so this is the boxwood. The planting is a little bit needing of, it's a lot needing of some TLC. That's what I'm going to do today. I had originally had this tree with this as the front. It's still a nice front, but with some of this cleared away, this could be a nice front as well. Again, I did like this side, and a lot of the people in my audience agreed that this is a good side to be the front. It's going to be up on a hillside, which this kind of approximated, and the drama would happen in front of the tree. I had a rock here. I put some white sand to simulate the edge of a pond. None of it worked. It was really not very convincing as a pond in front of a tree. Couldn't get the scale just right. So today what I want to do is take a good critical look at this tree, determine a future for it, and prune it up in line with that future. All right, that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'll get these pots out of the way. I'm going to start by clearing off the moss, and the intent is to repot this. You know, since it's a tree on a hilltop and it needs to have a landscape associated with it, I keep thinking an oval pot is right. But this might not be the one. And I won't know that until I take a look at the roots. But today, it's all about the canopy. So you'll hear a fan whirring in the background. I hope that's okay. It's getting a little hot in here. I started to remove the moss, and the sage words of Nigel Saunders came rushing through my head. Wherever you have moss or muck, your roots are going to be growing up into it. And as you can see, that is a fact. So while I wasn't going to touch the landscape, I do think I'm going to need to top dress this with some bonsai soil, press these guys down, and I'll root prune them at the right time. I still believe today should be only about the tree. Maybe, you know, the top roots that have hit the side of the pot, I'll just cut them off short. But I'm going to need to top dress this for the health of the tree. And when I finally tackle the landscape, that's when I'll do a proper root prune. Did I say root prune? Okay. You can watch me do the rest of this in fast motion because I think I've described what I'm going to do pretty well. I'm also going to remove the moss that's growing up the side. With this tree especially, I don't know if you can see this area right here. It's a little less gnarly than the rest of the bark. I did have moss growing up there. And if you want any more proof that moss growing up the side of your tree can wreck its appearance, let this serve as Exhibit A. Alright, so I've redressed the top with fresh bonsai soil. It's pressed down onto those roots. I'm not that worried about the roots that are on the surface here. I'm going to let them air prune. I have some good surface roots, so a little bit unfortunate. This root is extremely unfortunate, and I may end up losing it, but depending on the view that I choose as the front, I've got a big root on this tree on this side that's probably got a lot attached to it, and a big root on this side on this tree. Could this survive as a single trunk tree? Yes, and it actually is two trunks, which are kind of fused together down there. I could have wiggled them apart, but I elected not to. But the reason we're here is to start pruning it up, so let's take a look at that. I've watered this not super thoroughly because it was wet underneath, just enough to keep the surface roots moist. They will not continue to grow up into this area because there's no moss here now. I will deal with the landscape on this when I repot, which could be this fall. You're looking at the front of just the canopy. I'm going to go in here and kind of look for debris and pull it out where I can, just so that it doesn't get in my way when I'm doing this other operation. I'm also looking for any evidence of insects or scale. I could be seeing some very, very young aphids. I'll look a little closer. I will spray this tree with soap and water and wash that through. I had always just eyeballed my 40-to-1 ratio, and this time I actually measured 40 parts to 1 part, and I was very surprised. I had been overdoing the ratio. So I would suggest that you do this maybe once and mark a container where the water would go up, and use the same measure that you use to measure the 40, to measure the 1 part of soap, and you'll be right every time. All right. The way to tackle this is to find your scissors, which you just had in your hand. Here we go. That's step 1. Okay, we want to clear this out. So let's start with the obvious. I have a branch down here that doesn't need to be there. There's a segment of it that grows up, though, that I kind of like. It doesn't grow up, it grows out. So I'm going to take this in a couple of steps so I can actually see what's going on. It grows forward. This branch grows forward and could aid in this pad. Possibly not. Am I going to leave it on? I'm going to leave it on for now. Just to see what develops. This is interfering. So I'm going to cut it back down to the second set of leaves. It'll either die or bifurcate from there, which will be fine. This is making me think I should take this whole thing off. And I am. So forget what I said. There is a little bit of growth there. I'll leave it on. There's one on the other side, though, I don't need. This bit is crossing the whole thing, so I'm going to take this bit off. Down to the first set of leaves. I'll leave that for a moment because that's where I want this whole branch to be, or this whole pad to be, right at that point. So I'm leaving that on. Here's one that's growing straight up and kind of ruining it as a pad. This one needs to be shortened. I'm going to take this one off entirely. Did I get it? Not quite. There we go. Okay, so this is actually two pads. So let me leave that in my mind and prune accordingly. I'm going to take this top piece off and shorten the pruning stub here. I'm going to stand back. The words of Doc in my club. Walk 10 feet away and look at it. Study it. This is getting nice. But I think I'm going to go down a little further here. And I'm going to shorten this. Nice young leaves there. This is still part of that same pad. Here's the part that's infiltrating the other branch. So I'm going to start with that other branch and take the part away from that that's interfering with this branch. I'm going to do it in stages though, because I want to be safe. You know, and we'll isolate this one branch in terms of a lesson on how I'm going about this. And then I'll move around the tree in the same way, do it a little quicker so these videos don't get to be too long. I'll be as meticulous as I'm being now, but just a little bit quicker. Okay, so that's got this branch isolated. Let's remove some of the interior growth on it. The leaves really low down. And unless they add to the mystique. This is out of the profile. I'm going to take it down further, which means I'm taking it down to where I took it down the last time. And those branches on the other branch, I'm going to take off entirely. Yeah, I'm taking this off. It's got a section that goes forward, just like the other one did. I'm going to take it off down to there. Okay, good separation. Removing the leaves from the stem. And we'll look at this branch critically when I'm done with this. At this point, the idea is to get light into the interior of each branch, which will encourage further subdivision. And the health of those branches. All right, let's take a close-up look at this branch. See, if this is the front of this tree, this whole branch is kind of in the way. If that branch weren't there, this would still be a good front. Not ready to make that leap today, but that's one of the things I'm thinking about. Unless the front is rotated around a little bit so that this tree is more of a background tree. All right, so that's my thought process here. And in looking at this, I'm going to take this piece off. Yeah, that's my thought process here. Maybe this piece as well. No, you know what? I'm going to leave it. All right, moving on. And I'll do that in fast motion. So there's the front that I'm perceiving right now. As you can see, I've thinned out the tree quite a bit. There's now space between all the branches, and while I've got you, I'm still clearing out some of this growth. These leaves are a little bit large. I can go down another one there. I can come in a little bit on this side. Can come in a little bit here. I can declutter the interior of this branch by removing some of the old leaves that are close to the crotches, allowing more light in and more future ramification, hopefully. I was doing directional pruning to leaves that I thought would then bifurcate advantageously. To be critical, of course, this view is a little bit flat over here. I had a wonderful branch at one time that died off. It kind of tells a story there, doesn't it? All right, I'm going to continue to clean out the middle of this, and I'll come back for a final view, and we'll talk about the future. Well, there are two potential fronts on this tree as I see it, if you're looking at only this side. Here's a good front, which makes me wonder about this branch. Or if I have it with the old front, makes me wonder about this branch. But for right now, I'm going to look at the front like right here, and remembering I'm repotting this. So it's off to the side, the way I see it, and I'll adjust it for you in a moment. Once again, forgive the noises of the neighborhood. Okay. That's the front as I envision it today. A little weird. I think I'm going to give that a little snip. This is the front. So I've cleared out a lot of, if not all of, well, definitely not all of, the interior growth on these branches to give it a more miniature look. I'll probably play with this gin a little bit at some point. This isn't a bad front either, but like I said, this side is a little empty here, and this gin kind of tells the story of why it's a little empty. In terms of repotting, what do I have in mind? Well, I still like the on a hilltop concept, and depending on the roots, I have a smaller oval pot that might do well for this. I could put it back in this plastic pot as well, with that being the front or somewhere around here. I've got to play with these forward branches. Then again, I could live with that as well. Alright, so I've saved this landscape. I've put off the repot for another couple of seasons. I'll probably repot this in the fall or early spring. But that's it for now. My boxwood has been pruned up. It's going to go back out on the bench. I'll put the fertilizer back on here. I didn't really cut roots, just a few surface roots as they exited the pot rim. And that's it for today. Thanks for keeping me company in my backyard.